Good morning, man. What's up?
Good morning. Happy December. Happy December to you.
Yes. First weekend in December. Can you believe it? The
No,
first
I
weekend.
can't. I cannot.
Man, it's like
Where did the year go?
75 degrees here, man. December.
Whoa.
Well,
No,
it will be close to 75. It was 75 yesterday.
So, LaMarr and I get together every Saturday early. So but then we don't talk about the weather until we get on the show. And it was like, so I didn't know it was 75.
Well,
75.
it's supposed to be it's supposed to be in the 70s. The 70s, like
nice.
all week has been been nice weather all week in the 70s. Get a little cooler in the evening, but December, the first weekend in December, this year has went so fast. It's just like zoomed right past me.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
Can you believe it? 2022 is coming up just around the corner. And I just got out yesterday. I went to the garage and got out all the Christmas stuff. So do you have your Christmas stuff up or?
No, I don't have anything up yet. I'm always late, man. I'm the Grinch, man. I'm always the one that's late.
The Grinch.
Okay, this is my point. This is my issue. I always got to come real with you like every week, something. I think that we commercialize Christmas too much. So that's been my beef.
Oh yeah,
and it's like
definitely.
actually causes a disruption in my household because my wife was like, "Let's get the tree up, let's do this." I'm like, "Okay, whatever," And not that I don't enjoy. I'm not in the Christmas spirit. I just feel that we push so much toward the commercialization of it.
Yeah.
That I look at the way our world is. It's disheartening to know that we'll go spend all this money on Christmas, and there are people that are starving or families that will actually spend their bill money to buy all these gifts.
Yeah.
Instead of buying something that's more reasonable. And I'm like, wow, and it's a cycle. It's a continued cycle of financial struggle. And not only that, the lack of understanding of why we have Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's what bothers me.
We put such a pressure on Christmas. Like we have to do these things. We have to get gifts for people. We have to do these parties and things like that. And at a certain point, as I get older, I'm like, well, what's the point of all this? What is the point of stressing yourself out with what should be happy and fulfilling for you and your friends and family, and to simply enjoy them, enjoy your life, enjoy the time off, not to have to fill it with things. You fill it with gifts and you fill it with things. But I mean, that's something we could talk about probably at some point.
Yeah.
We could talk about the holidays, holiday season.
So we got a lot of things here, man. We got the voting rights still under fire. I posted a video this week. Did you see that video by any chance about the conservative group Heritage Action?
Yes.
It's pretty deep. We're going to do a deep dive into that. I know we've had our discussions over voting rights.
Oh, here, look at this. Look at this. Jeffrey's return your gift, man. He said you don't like. He said you don't like Christmas. He's gonna take it back. He's got that receipt ready.
What were we talking about? Remember we were talking about being authentic? That's why we have our guest on today. She's going to talk about being your host.
I'm looking forward to this. I need help with this.
Yeah.
I need help.
So that was an example. I just gave my authentic feelings about Christmas. I didn't say I didn't like Christmas. I said that we over commercialized Christmas. And what happened? Somebody got offended, twisted what I said, created their own narrative, and said he's going to return my gift. Okay, Jeff, just hold on to my gift. It'll be all right. So we got the voting rights we're going to talk about. Also, we know the teenager in Michigan that shot killed 4 people, injured 8 others.
Tragic.
Well, they finally caught the parents yesterday in a manhunt in Detroit. Where do we go? I mean, what's going on here? I mean, like, what's happening that these I'll take it back. We come back and rephrase the question. Not what's going on here. Okay. What is going on with parenting from that perspective? That the parents will get on the run.
Well, there's several layers to this story. First of all, the mental health angle. He clearly that this 15-year-old high school student needed some help, I think. Secondly, this is the first time really in a high-profile case where we've seen the parents be charged, and then they were on the run
Yeah.
for a day or so.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to me. We're going to talk about this. We got
Yeah.
several things to look at, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to dissecting that with you. So,
And you mentioned to me about the story about the police shooting in Tucson.
mhm.
The handicapped guy that was in a wheelchair. They shot him in the back. We're gonna bring that story up. Did you find any more news on that?
Yes, I did. So apparently, I listened to some things this morning. Um, he had a knife in his hand.
Okay.
There was some question as to was he in the wheelchair just out of convenience? Was he in the wheelchair? Was he truly handicapped? I think that's probably blaming the victim, I think, in this case. But there's also some evidence to suggest that he was being belligerent to the police officers, egging them on, that he had some
Right.
sort of death wish. So I heard a lot of things. I
Okay.
saw the video where he's going into the store and they shot him 9 times and he slumps over. So that was hard to watch.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I got several things to say about that, and
Okay.
that's disturbing. It was disturbing when I saw that
Right.
2 days ago. That was bad.
And it's just sad that it's one of these days that this weekend we have a lot of everything we're talking about is something in regards to guns or violence because Clarence Savant, his wife died, was murdered this week, and she's a philanthropist, and they're a powerhouse couple. And I brought
Yeah.
the story up about Clarence Avant early last year. He's in the same realm of that Doug Cole we talked about last week. He's very influential in the music industry, but people don't
Okay.
realize that Clarence Avant was very influential in politics as well. I mean, all the way even back to Bill Clinton being becoming a candidate for presidency. I mean, there was so many things. The relationship of Sammy Davis Jr. and the black community at one time, back in the 70s, and then he
Yeah.
kind of blended that relationship. Like even Michael Jackson's greatest tour became a political statement because of all the minority people they had behind the scenes working. That was all Clarence Avant putting that into place. So he's been very influential in our society. That's what made me think what happened with his wife,
Hmm.
because this guy, if you saw the video, he was kind of laughing it off as they was wheeling him out. I don't know if you saw, but we're gonna bring more of that up.
Yeah.
We
It's
got
sad. It's very sad.
Joe Osteen's church. You got to fill me in on this one because you were briefing me on it this morning.
So just in the news, the last few days, there was a story that a janitor, somebody who was cleaning, it was either the janitor or the plumber. Uh,
Okay.
I can't remember right now, but somebody was in one of the bathrooms, and apparently there was behind the wall as he was fixing the toilet, money, cash money, and checks.
Mm.
There was a lot of money, like hundreds of envelopes full of money. And
Wow.
back in, I think it was 2014, there was a big, um, their collection basically was stolen that Sunday, apparently,
Wow.
to the tune of $600,000. Now, if that collection was indeed what was in the wall, then we know what
Yeah.
happened to it. And so it's just weird. Were they keeping the money for something? Was there some
I
sort of
don't know,
scheme?
man.
Was it laundering? Was it, it seems fishy. It seems fishy. So
So yeah, we got to dig into that one, man. That's deep. And then we also have, Chris Como speaks out, about his situation with his brother and the sexual harassment cases against him. And we were talking about this earlier. We both agree he was totally unethical in the way
yep,
he
yep.
went about it as a journalist as well as an attorney. But the bigger question is, if that was your sibling, what do you do? Do you investigate? Do you try to get answers? Do you try to see what you can to help get your sibling off? Get him get the
Say
dirt off
no. I
his
mean,
back.
if my sibling did something wrong, then no. Then
No,
no.
the question is, we don't know, is it wrong or is it not wrong? That's why they're going through all these investigations to see if he is clearly wrong. Because he hasn't been charged with anything yet. So what I'm asking, what I'm saying, we're both in agreement that Chris
Okay.
Kumo was wrong
Uh-huh.
in what he did.
Yep.
But from a humanity standpoint, from being people, being the flesh, being humans, what do? Some people will go ahead and stand by their sibling's side. Others, and then there's times where others will just turn their sibling in, like, no, you're completely wrong. But in this case, there's no proof of guilt yet. But from a journalist standpoint and an attorney, he was completely.
Well, I think it was using some of his access and some of his power and some of his connections in order to try and help his brother. I think his journalistic integrity was compromised. I think he was right to be let go. It was right to be let go. I think,
right.
in the case.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So,
but is it wrong? Okay, see, I'm getting caught up in this. Is it wrong for him as a person to feel this way about his brother, but yet we know it was wrong for the action that he took? That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess I disagree with about trying to help out your brother. I mean, if your brother did something wrong, if your brother is harassing people, if your brother is sexually harassing coworkers and people at the state house, then I don't got a lot of sympathy.
Yeah, it's gonna look ugly for him, man. I think this is gonna damage his career. I think he's done actually because of the.
Well, he's still on Sirius XM. It's not like he's not going to be out there, I guess. So
yeah, but that's not in the public eye as much, and I think because of the politics that the way his rhetoric is online on the media, in the media, that it's going to hurt him in a lot of ways. So also we have the Georgia team selling ghost guns in Georgia and accidentally shot his sister. We talked about this earlier in the year also about guns and that how these ghost guns are so dangerous because they can't be traced or tracked. I know you're a big anti-gun guy. Well, so I know this like burns you to the core.
Well, I don't know. I mean, anti-gun. You call me anti-gun. I don't know how I feel about that labor. I'm anti. I'm pro. Gun. I believe that people should have the right to own a gun. However, I think it should be there. I think that there's a lot of things we can do legally and structurally in this country and through the law in order to curb the gun violence. One of them is the prevalence of guns. So, so we'll talk about it. Yeah, he was making ghost guns in his house, and so I don't think that making ghost guns at all should be legal. So that's one thing. Another gun tragedy to talk about today. So it just mourns my heart.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that. I think that as we're talking about that discussion, to tie in the Oxford couple and how things are going to probably move forward in regards to parents being responsible for minors in these gun offenses. That'd be a good conversation. And lastly, we have today the woman breastfeeding her cat on a Delta flight.
Now this is going to have to be cataloged in the bizarre, weird thing. Maybe we should have a category every week where we try to find the most bizarre story. This is up there. I don't know. That's I don't know. That's I didn't think you could get your cat on a flight for one. Usually they're in the baggage compartment in a cage.
Carrier.
So
well, you can have a carrier under your seat.
Yeah, I guess.
In the seat in front of you on a plane. But rounding it all off, I have a special guest today that I'm just honored to have on our show today. I've known her for a while, and she's a good friend. Her name is Linda Beard. And I want to read you this quote from Linda. I want to bring up her picture also here that we have. There's Linda. I'm going to bring up this quote from her Facebook. It says she's an author, and this is a new book. It's an upcoming book that's coming out. The book is called Bold Enough. And it says, bold enough is about fighting to be authentically you. I can't say that word. Authentically. I'm trying, man. My tongue is
No, go ahead. I get it.
Sometimes it's about fighting your way out of a situation that is killing you within day by day. Sometimes you no longer recognize who you are. Sometimes it's the lost purpose, hope, or a bad decision. You fill in the blank. It could be a relationship, a career, family, a you situation. But it's not about being selfish. Are you ready to take the necessary bold action at the right time as often as necessary? Got to extend this down a little bit. As often as necessary. It's hard work. It's a daily work. It's not easy. And that's a quote from Linda. That's so deep. And I want to bring Linda up now,
Let's
and we're
bring her
going to
on. Let's
discuss
bring
a
her
little
on. I
bit
want to
about
talk.
this.
Good
Hello.
morning, Linda. Good morning. Welcome to the Bottom Line Show. It's good to have you here this morning with us. Thank you for being here.
Are you muted? I think you're muted.
We're having some trouble getting Linda's audio hooked up this morning. So be patient with us here. We'll get it
Yeah, we
figured out.
just had her there. Any audio there? Yeah, we thought she was just doing there. I don't hear you at all. I want to bring you down, and we're going to bring you back up. See what happens here. Check your audio settings there. I'm going to bring you back up now. And it should be connected to whatever your device is. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you now. Good morning.
Wonderful. Perfect. Wow. I have to tell you, I have not listened to your podcast before, but the story headlines are great, including the breastfeeding of the cat. I have to tune in every single week to get a synopsis of all of the headlines of the news stories. So you have me for life now with your podcast. This is great. But thanks for having me on the show. I am so honored to be here. Thank you, LaMarr, for giving me this opportunity.
You're very welcome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's great. Thanks.
So let's get into it. Bold enough. Talk to me. Me and Darrin, we've had these conversations about being authentic. I mean, throughout, and just to give you a little backstory about me and Darrin, we went to school together, from elementary through high school.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friends after George Floyd died. So I'm not saying we became friends. We became partners with this show after George Floyd. And we talk about being authentic, about our understanding of perspectives of how we see things in life. And if you're not authentic with the other person, they will never understand what you're feeling, why you feel the way you feel, and all those things. So to give you that story about me and him, we've been discussing this, and to have you on the show is going to be great because you're going to dig deep into what we've already been talking about. So if you could tell us a little bit about Bold Enough and what brought you into writing this book.
Right. We are conditioned at a very early age to be honest and to do the right thing, but we don't necessarily see it modeled because we are really, what we see modeled is to not necessarily hurt people's feelings, right? Or where we see do as I say, but don't really watch what I do.
Okay.
And you really don't really notice it as a child so much because you just see, people trying to make it all work. And I know as a young child, I'll speak for myself, that I came from a 2-parent household, what we call traditional family, both parents in the household working very hard, setting good moral standards that you don't embarrass your family name, you work hard, you don't lose your integrity for anything, and you go out there and you get a job and you just be a great employee and you support your family, right? And you just be a good American citizen.
Yeah, be a good citizen. Do your part. Pay your taxes.
Be a good neighbor.
Fit
help
in.
your neighbor out. If you run into a problem, you just tough it out.
Okay.
And just keep going. And that's just the way you do it. And it really doesn't matter how you feel, as long as you have a job, as long as you have clothing on your back, roof over your head, you just keep going. And and so you just keep going, right? And so, but somewhere in there, where does it really matter how you feel? Does it matter what your dream is? Does it matter, you know, doesn't matter. Does anything else ever matter?
Right.
And so you have to find who you are. You have to discover who you are. What is your dream? What do you enjoy? What do you want in life? And so the book actually came out of being that girl in a small little town. Not that it was a bad town. It was just I wanted a world outside of that town. Not knowing exactly what that was, but it was more than just growing up in a small town, graduating from high school and marrying someone from the small town and having kids. I wanted something different. And wasn't maybe the traditional thing to do in that town.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town, and I'm proud of my small town. I just want everyone to know from my small town, Chillicothe, Ohio, that I'm proud of my small town. It's great people. It's hardworking people.
Yeah.
Everybody knows your name. I just wanted something different.
Okay.
And so, but the thing of it is, when I wanted that something different and I moved away early and I got to that big city, guess what? I didn't know how to be me still. So I spent half of my life, you know, being someone that I really didn't know who I was. And so still, I made a lot of bad decisions, people pleasing decisions, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So the book really talks about the 4 top people pleasing decisions that I made that actually crushed me, that it forced me to fight for who I really was. And that's what I want the readers to really understand, is that you will make people pleasing decisions, whether you make it for a relationship or a career or, you know, whatever those decisions are. You'll find yourself so in a rut that you're like, this is not who I am. You know, there will be that turning point in your life where you'll find yourself like scratching to get to the top and say, but this is who I am. There will be that defining moment that you'll say, no, I was purposed to do this. And I'm going to fight my way out of this to do this. And so I remember saying little things along the way, even as a child, that I found myself to be an encourager, that I am one that motivates people. People would come to me and tell me their life story, and I could keep a secret. But I remember as a little girl being fired up in the church one day by a sermon, and the pastor saying, no, you sit down. You'll never be up there talking to people. We don't allow women in the pulpit. And then I remember in my 20s and early 30s where I was ministering to women, and I was shut down because so many women were motivated by my ministry, and I was shut down because of jealousy. And then I remembered in corporate America where I was encouraging women to grow and to be all they could be in their career. And then that was just too much. And so, you know what? I've had enough. I know that I have a purpose to really develop and encourage people, not just women, but men. I am a leader. And now I am in corporate America, and I am a leader, and I'm an executive, and I have some teams that are motivating people, and we're kicking butt. in corporate.
Right.
And we're doing great. And I just
Good.
want people to know that whatever your true talents are, do it. If your
Yeah.
talent is being an artist, do it. Don't
Yeah.
let someone tell you that you're an artist and you can't make any money out of it.
Right.
You know, you
Yeah. How
want
many
to
times have people
sing
heard that?
and you know it's a dangerous industry. Do it because
Right.
whatever it is that makes you happy. There are people that are stuck in marriages that are bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't get out of this marriage because, well, guess what? I was stuck in a bad marriage too. But guess I walked away because it was killing me. It was stressful. It was killing me. Guess
Hmm.
what? I walked away. I'm happy.
Yeah.
There is life on another side. So, I mean, we can win Grammy Awards by being fake. But who wants to be fake? Who
Right.
wants to be fake?
Right.
Life is too short. Be
Yes.
who you
Yes.
are.
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Be who you are.
So
Now, here's the whole thing about being authentically you. It is about taking that bold action at the right time in that situation. So
Mhm.
whether it's corporate America,
okay.
whether it's in a family situation, whether it's in a career. This is the key. You don't say anything you want to say anytime. It's about when do you say it, being respectful when you say it,
Yeah.
Right.
and being at the right time.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not about being selfish. It's not about being all about you, but it is about fighting for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's
Agree.
about really putting it in perspective. You
Yeah.
have to know,
That's
okay, this is who I really am. Now, how do I be who I am? And how do I, if it's a relationship, how do I let that other person know that I need to move out of this situation? How do I get there? There's a plan to getting there. It's not just saying, hey, I know who I am now, forget you, I'm out of here. No, there's a respect to that. And so the book will kind of go through all of that with you, but it will talk about you know some bold actions, and it's like being bold enough to ask and not be worried about what the answer is.
Yeah.
So once
that's
you
very good.
find who you authentically are, it's a day-to-day fight
Mhm.
because you have to fight to get there.
Yeah.
And so you'll come across that one question that you may have to ask someone, whether it's in your career or in a relationship, because you may find your career starting to teeter or your relationship, and you find yourself acting different, kind of going back into that hole that you fought yourself out of. And you may have to say, ugh, I need to ask this question.
Yeah.
If not, I'm going to withdraw back to that old person that I just
Yeah.
got out of.
Right.
Ask the
Yeah.
question. Don't
I got a.
fear the answer.
That's speaking to me. Yeah. Go ahead.
You had a question,
Don't fear
Darren?
the
Did you have a
answer.
question? You
Yeah.
had a question, Darren?
Yeah. Linda's. For people listening out there, tell us what you do now. You said you're in corporate America. You work in corporate. Do you speak to people? Or are you um, motivational speaker? Tell us a little bit about that
I do.
for us
I
that don't
do.
know.
I with COVID and everything like that, I haven't gone out and spoken to any groups. But right now, I have a full time job that I work every single day, and I'm
Okay.
writing the book. But I do hope to get back out and do motivational speaking to groups because it's something that I love to do.
Okay.
Um, and I also have a heart for young people. If we could, can you imagine? Because you guys were talking about mental health and earlier, can you
Yeah.
imagine if we just begin to create a culture of just people in general, but I have a heart for young people young people just being able to say how they feel
Hmm.
and not be afraid to say, this is how I feel, or
Yeah.
if they don't want to go along with the crowd, that they are bold enough to say that I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
that they know right from wrong and they can say no,
Hmm. Hmm.
be bold enough to say no, and be bold enough to say yes for what's right. If we could just encourage young people to stand on that, wouldn't that be awesome?
Would be
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, so many people
Wouldn't it be
would benefit
awesome if
from this. Yeah.
adults could just be bold enough to stand for what's right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You made a good
Would that
point.
be
You mentioned
awesome?
earlier. Yeah, very awesome.
We have
Definitely.
we have moved so far away from being bold enough to
Yep.
do what's right.
I think also, I think people have not had the empowerment to be bold enough.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I say that, you gotta it depends on who you're talking to, who was bold enough. I mean, you look at women, for instance. Women only in the last 20 years have been able to have that empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at certain minorities have just now had that empowerment. Um, and then you look at children. Has children ever really had that empowerment into the last 10 to 10 years where they're like speaking out now?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this point here that you said earlier that it's a pivotal point in your life where you decide to make that change. And I'm looking at this, I'm looking at different things about being authentic. And this point came up that says, know what you value and what you want. A person, before they can be bold enough, they really have to realize their own value. They have to
Exactly.
realize who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
you've expressed that you said, you made this change because that's what you wanted. You didn't want to do certain things the same old way anymore.
Right.
Explain a little bit about value and how does a person realize their value or understand their value or what they want. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. You have to love yourself. You have to love yourself enough. And sometimes your love for yourself is how you see other people placing the value on you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and you can't let other people place your value.
Right.
And that was the biggest mistake that I made, is I let other people place the value of my worth. And so, don't let people do that.
Right.
And
Know
so
that value.
I had to say to myself that I am worth everything. I am worth everything.
Right.
I
Right.
love myself. And
Right.
so anything that I want, I deserve it. And
Right.
when I say that I deserve it, it means that I'm worth it and I can go after it. I can achieve
Right.
it. I'm
Right.
willing to work for it. I'm not I'm not waiting for someone to give it to me. I'm worth it and I'm willing to go after it. I'm willing to work for it. And what I can conceive, I can achieve. If I don't
Right.
know how to get it, I'm willing to broaden my network of people to learn how to do it and how to go
Gotcha.
get it. I am not depending on anyone to get it for me, but I'm willing to
Right.
learn. And
Right.
so that's the beauty of it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to make excuses why we can't.
Right. Right. Totally
And
agree.
and so and that's what I love about it. I mean, now I'm not naive to know that there are some things that I just may not be able to do because I just don't have that talent, right? Because
Right.
we all will have those shortfalls, but um, luckily I don't want those things that I don't have the talent to do. So,
Right.
but I love myself to know that I don't have to settle for less,
Right.
right? And so why would I settle for less? So that's the whole beauty of it. I have settled
Mhm.
for less. I've listened to the fact that I'm on the show, the fact that I even have been doing video shoots lately, the fact
Mm.
that I even take pictures now and I'm on Facebook. When I told that you should never take pictures, you take horrible pictures, that
Oh
you
wow.
should never write, you're a horrible writer, that you should not do this. Well, guess what I found out along the way? That those were people that were afraid of what I would be able to achieve. Those were
Exactly.
my haters. Those were my
Yeah.
naysayers.
Yeah.
But you know what? They had a place at one time where they were feeding into my mind, but they don't have a place anymore
Right. Right. Right.
because they were haters. So that's what
Right.
I'm telling the audience out there. Don't listen to that. They have no
Yeah.
place. Know your value.
Yeah.
Love yourself
Yes.
first. You
Now
place
you
the
mentioned
value in work, not other people.
we were talking a few weeks back about your book. We had a little pre-conference talking about this, and I asked you the question of therapy. Like, was this therapeutic for you? Was this like your therapy to be able to write?
Yes.
Explain that a little bit, because some people need their outlet, and in order to find who they are, they have to start doing something. Mine
Mhm.
was music. As you know, I've been in music and that side of it. That was my therapy through a lot of
Mhm.
things in life. Yours was this became therapy in writing. Can you explain a little bit about that and how can people find their safe space for their own self therapy when they're trying to find their authentic self?
Yeah, there's three therapies for maybe four therapies for me. First, the very first therapy for me is my relationship with God.
Right.
So every morning I have devotion, and my devotion has evolved over the years. When I was young, I was raised that you go to church and you have your devotion time, and it had to be reading the Bible and long prayers, and it was more of a ritual kind of
Mm-hmm.
relationship with God. Um, that's not the case any longer. I am more closer to God than I ever been, but it's so much more of a relationship that I'm more walking and talking and throughout the day with God, and waking up as if He's my husband, and I'm walking around the house, having
Yeah.
a conversation like, show me myself. What did you think? You know,
Yeah.
was there anything that I need to reflect on? Anything that you see in me that's not pure? And it's just like we're sitting in a room having a conversation. So it's self-reflection. What is
Right.
in me that is not pure that I need to take a look at? Because my whole thing is I want to be authentic. Is there anything in me that is not pure? So that's the kind of devotion that I'm speaking of. So it's music, it's that getting me right for the day kind of thing. And then the second therapy for me is being around water. I have to be around water. I want to sit and see the flow of the river. There's something
Mm-hmm.
about the water that just puts me in a place of just still calmness and just being quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And that just flows words through me, and it's healing for me. And then the writing. When I
Mm-hmm.
write, I feel the words brings out what I'm really thinking in a depth that I can't speak, but I can
Mm.
write. And so
Yeah.
when I talk about the four pleasing things, which I don't want to give you guys, I want you to read the book, but I did not realize that my life a I was a people pleaser, and
Yeah.
I was
So many people are. Yeah.
I was it was a behavior modification. My life was full of behavior modification. If I did this, I got this.
Yeah.
And so that's how I lived my life. It was easy. until the behavior modification didn't work anymore. And so when it snapped, that's when I had to figure out, well, who am I now? This isn't working.
Right.
So what do I do?
Yeah.
Wait, go back for a second. I didn't mean to cut you off, Darrin. I want to go back because this is something that I've never heard before. This is a new word for me.
Behavior modification?
I spelled it wrong. Hold on one second. I got to correct that edit. Behavior modification.
Yeah.
Go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by behavior modification?
Yeah. So behavior modification is an act that you do and you get a reward. And when the reward is positive, you keep doing it.
Yeah.
So if I do something that pleases you, then you
feel good about yourself because you're a people pleaser, right?
I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So if I did something that you like, and so then you're going to do something that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And so it keeps going back and forth.
Right.
So,
but then you live in a sort of codependency relationship. You're always trying to live for somebody else.
Right.
And as long as that keeps working, then we're good. But if I happen to do something that doesn't please you and you don't reward me, then it breaks the chain. It breaks the cycle. Right. And then I have to keep figuring out what's going to please you. And then if I don't get it right, then my world is tumbling.
I think
and your world is tumbling.
Yeah, I think so many people live like that. So many people live like that, don't they? It seems like it. I admit, as you are talking, it's like, you know what? There's a lot of this that speaks to me. It's like, because I am, like you say, a people pleaser. So if people are displeased with me, then I feel bad. I feel bad about myself, and I don't know where I learned that. I don't know where I got that. I don't know where.
It starts with our parents. It starts with our parents.
Okay.
We're like, oh, look at me. It starts with report cards, for goodness sakes. We come up with a report card. Yay! Yeah. But they get a C. Ooh, that's not so good. And then we're like, oh.
And this reminds me.
And you get a reward.
Right. And this reminds me, like, I can remember back in childhood and me being that different person. I was not I wanted to do things differently all the time myself. I picked careers that were different. I bought cars that was different than everybody. Something different. I did, and the thing about it is that I remember of doing things to please my parents because I was worried about what they were going to think.
Yep.
Whether it was going to a certain school, whether it was picking a certain career. And at one point where I said, this is what I want to do. And it seemed like it wasn't respected until others respected what I was doing. Then it was like, oh, he does have talent in this area, or yeah, this is interesting. And I was an adult when I finally clicked that light on in my head to say, stop doing these things to please someone else. And my parents are great. Don't get me wrong. You know my parents. My parents are awesome. But the reality is that was something that I think hindered me for several young adult years, is because I didn't do what I felt in my heart I wanted to do or what was best for me. I did it because to please someone else. I mean, really, literally, we've had conversations about this, and it's something where hearing you say the same thing of how you had to make these changes, and that it goes to this behavior modification thing. I can, that's why I said explain it, because I knew it was something. I felt what you were saying, but I was able to see my life in this brief couple of seconds. I mean, modifying my behavior for someone else.
For somebody else, yeah.
Because
I watched myself do it.
Different. People want, when you're different, people don't quite understand, because it's like what they see as the normal mold, or people care what other people think. Let's be real.
Yeah.
People care what other people think. Right. And when it's different, it makes it harder because it's
Yeah.
not, it's just different. And people
It's
don't
not
know what to do
traditional.
with different.
It's not your tradition. Like, I mean, if you look at households
Right.
and families, like you will tell your child, get this job because this job will allow you to retire. You have, your retirement money. It's a good benefits, good pay. And you will do it because you don't want to disappoint what your parents are saying or your family. But yet in your heart, you're like, this is not what I want to do.
That's
This
not
is
what
not
you
And
me.
want
you,
to
This
do.
is not me.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make you happy, and you'll be
it doesn't make
miserable.
you'll
You
be
may have,
miserable.
a good pension, but you're miserable. You're dying
Yeah.
within, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
do you want
Dying
a
within.
good
Wow.
pension, or do you
Hmm.
want to be stress-free and not in bad health? Which one's more
Right.
important?
Yeah. Well, I just say,
So
Do you
Linda,
I
you
want to
have a
have
lot of,
money in the bank and have diabetes, high blood pressure, and die early? Or do you
right.
want to be able to walk, and have low blood pressure and be happy? You choose
so
money or good health.
I have a question.
Right.
So how do you know when to say something and when to sort of keep your head down? Is it about timing? Is it about a balance there? Because you don't want to. You do want to have some filters. You do want to have. Uh,
Yes, you do.
you do want to be able to, um, get along. So when is there times? How do you know when to do that? How do you know when to step out, to be bold, um, and when does that happen?
Well, hopefully, you don't get to. I would always advise you not to get to a breaking point. Okay. Um, for me, I waited in the relationship. I waited 20 years too long. So it was a like, I'm out. Okay. So don't do that. What
Okay.
you really need to do is be, you know, make those ongoing conversations, situations that arise, begin to be, take a bold action, another bold action, take advantage of those right situations at the right time. So it's continuous, gradual, bold actions. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
That's really what you want to do. Um, and it's continuous dialogue. That's the ideal situation. But your
Okay.
very first conversation is going to be the toughest. And that's
Yeah.
that's that bold enough to have the first. So you're really
Right.
starting out, whether it's on your job or whether it is in a relationship, whether it's a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, or it's a family member. But you really
Right.
have to be able to have the right time is when there's not friction going on.
Right.
You're just having conversation and you can say, I've been wanting to really just share with you where I am. It's nothing about them. It's
Yeah.
about you.
Okay.
Hmm.
It's
That helps.
always
That helps.
about
Yeah.
you.
What about
So that brings up, I'm sorry, Darren, go ahead.
no?
But it's always about you. And you just want to be
Right.
able to say, I've been feeling how I have not been honest about myself,
Okay.
Hmm.
who I really am.
And
And
that
and
brought up this,
that will lead them in right away. And they'll say, really? Yeah, I really have not been honest with myself. And it's really for years I have not been honest with myself. And it's gotten to the point that I am so far away from who I really am
Uh huh.
that I want you to really be patient with me as I go through this journey and as I begin to reveal it with you.
That's good. That's good
yeah.
And
stuff.
I,
I just
I
been,
and I apologize. I
right.
apologize to you and I ask for your forgiveness because this is not easy, but I want you to know me.
And that's tough. I mean,
Go
I
ahead,
was reading
Lamar.
this. I just found this quote, this paragraph. I'm just, I'm always researching, and as you're talking, I'm looking, I'm reading, and you just made a point about how you had to have this like having this conversation with someone, and it's about you expressing your awareness about yourself. And it says authenticity requires a high degree of self-knowledge and self-awareness.
Mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
also means being able to make unpopular decisions without attacking others for their perspectives.
Yeah.
When you meet, and this is the part where I think we're similar. When you meet authentic people, you can feel it almost immediately because they are not in a popularity contest. They are there to interact and share. And that's something that makes a good point, is that when you're authentic, you can be the perception about you is different. People they were like they put the guard up because they think that you're attacking, or so instead of how do you make have these conversations or make these unpopular decisions without attacking or making the person feel attacked?
Right.
Like, although you're expressing your feelings about something, but you don't want them to feel attacked. And I'm the person who, when I'm speaking, people feel me being arrogant or attacking them because of being real all the time or being authentic.
Well, when you're authentic, it should not come across as being attacking, because, like, let's take, for instance, if you're in a conversation and you're at work, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're having a discussion about something and like 5 people in the room all agree and you don't agree, okay, and you have differences of opinions,
right?
You always want to be able to say, I can definitely understand everyone's perspective. And I can see very easily why you all have that perspective. On the other hand, I can see another perspective that I would like for all of you to consider.
Got you.
And this perspective is this angle.
Got you.
So again, it's not all about you. It's just an authentic another angle from another perspective, that an idea that you have.
Got you.
So when you're bold enough to bring another angle to the table authentically, but don't make it about you.
Right.
It's an idea from you that you have.
Got you. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
So you're acknowledging that they all agree on another angle, that you definitely can understand that angle. But you also are bringing another angle to the table that you want to authentically, because you have that perspective, bring to the table. But it's not about you.
Right,
it's about people coming authentically from you.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah, it
so
makes a lot of
we're
sense.
not attacking.
Yeah, so it's how you word it. And again, it goes back to that first sentence, a degree of self-knowledge and self-awareness. If you know how you are,
authentically, you have a self-awareness from you, that you have an opinion that you want to bring to the table. But you're not attacking by bringing it to the table.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So it should never be an attack. You just authentically have an awareness that you have an opinion.
Got you.
So we've been talking about big things, relationships, jobs. What about even small things? I think that people aren't honest with themselves, like what they like to eat, or what they anything. I think in a lot of small ways this is true as well. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, like things like sometimes, and I know we all do this, and I used to do this, and I don't do it anymore, because like if you're going out, let's say it's simple, like you're going out with your family, and a lot of times, there's 3 or 4 people, and you're trying to decide on a restaurant you want to go to, right? And everybody will say, well, where do you want to go? And you say, I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But you do care.
Yeah.
Right? You do care where you go. And so, but you'll say, oh, I don't care, anywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
Why not just put what you want to do in the ring and say, I would, I really want steak tonight.
And I find myself appreciating people who are like that, because it even drives me crazy a little bit when I ask a group of people, like, so what are we doing? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go to? Like you said, given your example, where do you want to go to eat? And everyone in the room, says, I don't care. I don't care. And then I'm forced to make a decision.
Right.
Like,
and they don't like your decision.
No one steps up and says, let's go to the Mexican restaurant. Right. I mean, so yeah, I appreciate when people are authentic and are honest about what they want, who they are. So.
And then when you get to the Mexican restaurant, right, then they're all sitting there, well, this is okay, but seriously, that's what happens.
That's the biggest argument. And that's the biggest argument with couples, is that, where do you want to go? I don't care. That whole back and forth. And when one does decide, the other one still says, that's not what I'm feeling, you still go back and forth.
Just say where you want. And then you could pound it out, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of arguments could be saved, because if you want steak and the other person wants like fish, you could probably find a restaurant that serves steak and fish.
Right.
And you're both happy.
I think the Red Lobster does.
So what do you do? Here's a question for you. How do you share your fears and struggles openly? And within being that authentic person, how do you share that? Because a lot of times when we share, we're still thinking about what other people are going to think about us. So how do you get past that, in that move to being bold enough to be able to share your fears and struggles openly?
First of all, I have realigned myself with only a close net circle of people that would take a bullet for me.
Okay.
And that's the only people that I would share my fears with.
Got you.
Okay.
So not everyone is going to be in that circle where you're going to share those most intimate details with.
Okay.
And that was something that I had to learn as well. You don't share, your fears and your most, safe, to your heart kind of things with everybody. So you just want to make sure that you have, those 1 or 2 or 3 people, because the truth of the matter is, there's not a lot of people that you have in your trust bank that you share, those most most things close to you with. You just don't. And so I would just say out there to your listeners that I had to learn a biblical principle, test the spirit.
Okay.
Test the spirit, and you'll find out who your close confidants
who people are. Okay. So we're talking with Linda Beard. She's the author of Bold Enough. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to share questions for her. We want to make sure that your voice gets heard on here.
This has been amazing. I mean, I've learned a lot just through this conversation about myself. This past hour, I have learned a lot about myself. And it makes me think also the point of always the need to prove your point is correct. A lot of times people want to say, well, I want to be transparent or you want to be authentic. But sometimes we get to the point of trying to change another person's mind or perspective. That takes us out of being authentic, because now we're being, what do you call it? Trying to direct, manipulative. Yeah, exactly. So what do you say about trying to prove your point is correct? And this goes into that relationship part, or it could be within a company, whatever that relationship is, where you want to be that bold person, but you're still trying to prove yourself. How do we get past trying to always prove ourselves to people, or prove your point, or rather your perspective?
I don't think you need to prove your point. I think that you need to share your authentic perspective and allow that person to prove their what their authentic feeling as well, which is their perspective. And then you talk about those both perspectives. And then you come somewhere in the middle if you're trying to make a decision on something, particularly if you're in a relationship or if you're working in the work environment. You're really trying to come together to make a decision and weigh your risk, right? So that's what it has to be about. It's not necessarily who's wrong or right. It's about weighing the risk. You know, what's the pros and cons of the ultimate decision?
Do you think you think it's like our history? You think it's where just because of people's baggage that it becomes a right versus wrong? When you try to talk about these different perspectives, that I mean, it's common for people to justify their stance, but in order to justify, you're proving the other person wrong. Your perspective, your way you're explaining it is exactly right. But I think we as people tend to go back and forth between right and wrong on making a decision.
Yeah, I think it's baggage. I think it's how people have seen things modeled in their households from how they were raised. I think also it may be biblical backgrounds or religious backgrounds and traditions of culture, and male versus women, and women, how they may have been more dominant in households over men and men over women. Now I will tell you from and some women out there may maybe want to throw me under the bus. I don't know. So, but I really love men taking their place in the household. I really like men being men. At the same time, I do really have a high respect for men making sure that they're having great conversations in the marriage, including their wives, and having these back and forth conversations. Just like I said, weighing in, having the two perspectives and putting them together and weighing the pros and the cons and the risk. But if there is disagreement, then I will, as a woman, if I'm in a marriage and it's a Christian marriage, I will, and my husband is responsible, I would defer and say, this is my take on it, but I'm going to defer to you and I'm going to back him up. But I don't have a problem with that as long as my husband, like I said, is responsible, doing those, right things. I don't have a problem with that. But, if he's not, then that's a different story. But as long as, we're talking, weighing those back and forth, but that's the way it should be done. It should not be about, lopsided and power struggles. It should be a partnership. In the workplace, it shouldn't be about egos. It should be about talking it out, putting great ideas together, listening to all perspectives, and taking the best of it all. Make it a win-win. It's about mutually, putting it all together for the wins, not about people. Take out people out of it, and it's about the ideas.
We have a question from Trina Marbury. She says, Trina says, how do you deal with the people that use, let me make sure I got this right. How do you deal with the people that are used to the old you and not the authentic you? I think there was some typos there in how she's worded it. But how do you get people the old you versus the authentic you?
So the people that are used to the old you, they're not going to probably hang around. Because they're going to want to pull you back to the old you, and you're not going to go back to the old you, because the authentic you is who you now are, you want to be, and that's the vibrant you, that's the purpose you, the driven you, the God created you, and you're not going back there. That's the you you're going to fight for every day. So you don't want the old you. So forget the old people. I had to forget the old people. So unfortunately, they're going to be replaced with new people, and they'll just wean themselves out, or you'll eventually just have to cut them off.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. So the book is. So you have a deadline yet, or a date that the book is coming out?
I need to spend more time on Lake Erie so I can get the last 2 chapters. They're in my head, but I'm having a hard time putting them there. But my deadline is coming up in a couple of weeks, so that this book can hit the shelves by the end of January.
So how are you going about putting the book out? Is it going to be
how
like
can people
Amazon
find the book?
website or?
Yeah, so it will be in all of. You'll be able to get it in pretty much every major bookstore, and it will be on all online. So you'll be able to get it. It's not going to be any problem with that.
And when will it be out?
It will be out. The goal is for it to be released at the end of January, early February.
Okay. We're looking forward to it. You got to definitely keep us up to date on all that information.
Definitely. I am so excited about it. When I read it back myself, I am excited. I just can't believe the words came out of my mouth, and onto paper, because and out of my mind. And that's just how powerful it is. So I am looking forward to getting in the hands of the readers so that they will be fighting for themselves every day to be authentically them.
That's great.
We have a on the comments. If you see your comment box there, can you put your social media handles in the comment box so people can reach out to you, as well as like maybe your email, website, your contact information? If you could put it in the comments, that way people can see it on this thread. And because this thread will be up forever, so they can always refer back to it. And we want to just thank you, Linda, for being part of our show today.
Thank you so much
you're
for being
welcome.
a part of the show.
You're welcome to stick around. We're going to go into some of the topics we talked about earlier, but we would love to have your perspective on some of these things if you want to stick around with us.
Okay.
It's good. It's good
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
good to meet
it.
you, Linda. Good to meet you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Let me see. What do we have here?
That was a really good conversation. So I wanted
awesome.
to, it really kind of spoke to me. I realized, for me, it's a lot of little things sometimes that I'm not comfortable in expressing. And I don't know why, because I'm kind of an introvert. So like, even with let's take, for example, Thanksgiving. It took me a long time to admit to people I didn't really like turkey. It sounds petty. It sounds petty and stupid, really,
Yeah.
But people will be like, well, how come you're not taking a lot of turkey, or how come you don't like, there's leftovers in the fridge for 2 or 3 days. It's like, and I'm not eating it. It's like, I finally had to admit to people I don't really like turkey. I'm sorry.
Right. And that's okay.
I mean, it sounds stupid, but hey, I mean, at least that's being me. I'm going to be happier by expressing that to people, by saying, it's nothing against you and your time and commitment to putting this dinner on the table. I like other things, and it helps that person to know. It helps that person to know. Now they know that they're not offended, that you're not eating their food or whatever it is, And there's so many little things in life that we put up with just to get along with people, and just to sort of, and I'm thinking in corporate world, and we talked about this with Working While Black. You come in and you make adjustments for other people's comfort levels, right? We talk about hairstyles. We talk about it could be, is it the way people dress? Is it hiding tattoos? What is it that people are hiding about themselves? It might be little, might be petty, that really is kind of harmful for the person.
Do you think? Would you agree that creates a work environment trauma in some people?
A little bit, sure. I mean, if you show up every day and you you have to hide who you really are. You have to wear certain clothes. You have to make sure you don't listen to offensive music in the
Right.
cubicle, whatever it is, or something that somebody might be offended by. You know, if you're a minority, for example, are you going to wear a hijab? Are you going to
Right.
wear a head covering? You know,
Right.
that's something that makes you authentically you. Okay,
Yeah.
and so there might be uh, people that look like me, who might be offended. They see somebody in a different culture, and they're from a different
Right.
culture, and they're being them, and you feel. I don't know what these people feel. I don't know why. I don't ever understood that point of view, but people um, have expressed that they find that offensive. There's all this talk in Congress about
Yeah.
Ilhan Omar, and
Hmm.
all this drama that's happening in the
Yeah.
House of Representatives, just for her being her. She's just
Yeah.
she's just a Muslim woman of color.
Yeah.
She's being who she is, and she gets criticism because of who she is.
So
People
it
get in the
sounds like
elevator and say, "There's the jihad squad."
right. I've heard about that back and forth with another lady. It was another woman in Congress that brought that out.
Yeah.
They had that conversation. It sounds like the people of Congress and the Senate could definitely use Linda's book, Being Bold Enough. And
Yeah,
reason why I
definitely.
say that, the reason why I say that because we know there are people in the Senate and the Congress who may not agree with their party of what's happening, whether it's Democrat or Republican. They don't agree, but they're being silent because they're worried about what others are going to say or think. They're not bold enough to come out and just speak their mind
Yeah.
and stay firm on it. And you see that a lot. And I just think that there needs to be an overhaul of how we approach these conversations um, within politics. I mean, in general, just in politics. I mean, you were mentioning about being your whole self at work. And I just read an article about a guy for Encore. It's
Hmm.
a entertainment company that does audio and things of that nature with like hospitality within hotels. And they wanted him to cut his hair. He was recommended for the job from
Yeah.
Florida, went to
Yeah.
Arizona, and got fired because he wouldn't cut his hair. And he's clean cut, and they said they didn't want to. They wanted to fire him because he didn't want to cut his hair. And so that makes him go to work with that back and forth of what should I do? Could I be my whole self,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
do I compromise? Then you go back to the word compromise. Some people will say, well, you got to do what you got to do to keep the job. There are rules and regulations. Were rules and regulations put in place
Hmm. Hmm.
to discriminate, or were
Hmm.
rules and regulations put in place because it was the best thing for the company? That's a question to be asked because some things are ethnic, like what you were saying about Ilhan. Her hair wrap. That's part of her ethnic background.
Yeah.
So that's her being her. And to criticize her for or to make jokes about it is totally disrespectful.
Yes. Well, I think there's in some respects there's a balancing act. I think if you work in customer service or sales, or if you are um, a public figure, then that's one thing. You might have to make sure that your hair is cut and that you shave.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but so I think that's different than if you're working in a cube. Um, you know, so I think there is some sort of decorum and sense of rules in certain positions that you might be
right,
required to do.
right.
Um, I mean, I go back to didn't the NBA used to have like a dress code for like press conferences and things like that? Did they do that, or was it?
Yeah, they did. It's not as bad now, but it was during the Allen Iverson years.
Yeah.
It was a big controversy about that because of terminology. People refer to Allen Iverson as a thug, and it's like, what makes him a thug? And so he purposely braided his hair, to change the culture. He purposely wore more of a hip hop attire, like and that's another thing. People call it hip hop, but really hoodie, sweatpants, or tennis shoes or something, and they were referring to him as not being professional, and it had nothing to do with his game because his game was all professional. So yeah, I mean, perspectives on what do you consider professional. And then it can be discriminatory because you can then isolate a certain group of people that you're referring to.
Yep.
And that's what happened in basketball. So they changed the dress code. They made everybody wear suits and ties. And that kind of slowly changed over the years again. People got more relaxed again, as you see.
Yeah.
Because, what's his name? Russ
Westbrook. Yeah. Russell
Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
He has some attire, man.
Yeah.
It's a little different, But to change a little bit the subject.
Yeah, let's go on to our topics, maybe.
I've been on talking about voting rights for a while, man.
Give it
so it's something that it won't leave me, man. It won't leave me. It's like the more and more I learn, the more and more I see things that are changing or that are referring back to our past. And it's bothering me. But I want to go ahead and play this video first. And
yeah, go ahead.
About it.
Mm-hmm. I'm Ari Berman, voting rights reporter for Mother Jones, with an exclusive new video from Documented about a right-wing group leading the GOP's war on voting.
I had one message for him. Do not wait to sign that bill. If you wait even an hour, you will look weak. This bill needs to be signed immediately.
You're watching Jessica Anderson.
We know that the fraud is real. We know that it can be proven.
These choices really show that the swamp is alive and well.
The left is using this basically as psychological warfare.
A former Trump administration official and now the executive director of Heritage Action for America, talking to top donors in Tucson, Arizona in late April. She's telling them about a meeting she had with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp just 3 days before the Georgia legislature passed a sweeping bill rolling back voting access in that state.
The state legislature in Georgia got it done, and you can help own this and cheerlead this if you sign it quickly. Do not delay.
But according to the video, Heritage Action did much more than just advocate for the bill.
Iowa was the first state that we got to work in, and we did it quickly and we did it quietly. Honestly, nobody noticed. At the end of the day, the bill that Governor Kemp signed and the Georgia legislature marshaled through had 8 key provisions that Heritage recommended.
This leaked video reveals how Heritage is leading a massive right-wing campaign to suppress voting rights in key battleground states like Georgia, Arizona, Florida, and Iowa just this year.
We're working with these state legislators to make sure they have all of the information they need to draft the bills. In some cases, we actually draft them for them, or we have a sentinel on our behalf give them the model legislation. So it has that grassroots, from the bottom up type of vibe.
While these bills are being sold as protecting quote unquote election integrity, the real purpose seems to be to help Republicans win elections. They plan to spend $24 million over the next 2 years in Michigan, Nevada, Wisconsin, Texas,
Pennsylvania,
and beyond to quote unquote right the wrongs of November.
And we are going to take the fierce fire that is in every single one of our bellies to right the wrongs of November, to right the wrongs of the mistreatment against these men, and move it into other states.
The Heritage Foundation is one of the best funded think tanks in Republican circles. They write the policy, and their sister organization, the dark money group Heritage Action, makes it happen. From writing and advocating these anti-democratic bills to leading the effort to block the For the People Act in Congress, Heritage is weaponizing Trump's big lie to motivate their donors and their base to strip Americans of their fundamental right to vote. To read my story with investigative reporter Nick Sergey of the watchdog group Documented, go to motherjones.com.
I thought that was very interesting because I never heard of this.
It is very interesting.
And the thing about it, people are going to, dispute with me saying that it's a political thing. It is political. But the thing about it is that if this is true, and it goes to all the different laws and things you see being passed, there's no way you can deny that there's some type of angle politically to hurt other people. And voting rights will, in my opinion, hurt our future generations. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
It may not impact us right now, but it's going to impact like my great grandkids, the way things are going. And it comes to like that same lady was the one who wrote the laws or the bill for the educational laws in Tennessee to take certain books off the shelf. Now, in my opinion, there are certain books that do need to be taken off the shelf. I would say if you're going to be sexually explicit about certain things, yes. If you're going to have books with a lot of profanity in it, yes, take them off the shelf. But to talk about historical facts or things that have happened to us, why are we taking them off the shelf? So what came to my mind was this picture. I'm going to try to find this picture.
Okay.
Because what I understand that people were upset because certain images in these books were making kids feel bad. So that's why this law was put together in Tennessee. The images of certain pictures make people feel bad. Why are they feeling bad about history? That's what I'm trying to understand. And if you listen to these people talk, they'll say, critical race theory is causing kids not to be patriotic and to not like themselves. They're not giving any examples. They're saying these things, but they're not giving examples of what. So I'm going to show you a picture.
I think because they're embarrassed about the examples that are in their mind. But go ahead.
But why? But that's part of a history. I'm going to show you this picture. And it's from the civil rights movement. And the question in it I want you to think about is, should a white child feel bad or should a black person feel bad that it happened to them? Now listen to the question. Should a white child feel bad because of this is what their ancestors might have did to someone else? Or should the black person feel bad because this is what happened to their ancestors? You hear what I'm saying? One is the perpetrator, one is the victim. Look at this picture. I want you to see this picture. Now look at this picture. I want to describe something to you. Let me get that banner down if I can. Where's that banner at? That feeling bad right quick. Okay. Look at that kid's face. What do you see on his face?
Fear.
Fear. Okay. What do you see on the officer's face?
He looks smug to me. He looks entirely too relaxed.
So I can understand. I'm going to empathize with some of these white parents. You feel bad because your kids are seeing what other white people did to black people. You feel bad that your kids now are being more and more aware because social media is going to allow information to come out. Now I look at the black parent. The black parent has been preparing their child most of the time since birth of things that can happen to them. I know I have, of what can happen to you. To always be prepared, always have your head on a swivel because you don't know what can come down the pipe, how you can be accused, how you can be attacked. That's something how I grew up. Now, when I saw this picture and I'm like, you're afraid of your kids learning our history. Why? What is the threat? What are you scared of? What are you scared of?
Yeah.
What are you afraid of? And when I saw that picture and I'm like, these are the pictures they want out of the magazines, out of the books. They don't want their kids to know these things. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Go
ahead.
No, that was, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm being rhetoric now because of a rhetorical question.
For me, I don't feel bad because I wasn't personally there. I wasn't born until 1970. So these things that happened before I was born, there was nothing I could do about it. So I don't feel bad necessarily because it's white people who committed atrocities or Christians that committed atrocities or fill in the blank. Now, should we feel bad about it? We should feel empowered and I would say we should feel not empowered. That's not the right word. We should feel motivated, all of us, black, white, whoever, to do something to make it better in the 21st century so that we have a more equal society, a more culture. It gives people opportunities more equally. That's the way I choose to deal with it. I'm not embarrassed at all that my kids learn about these things. I want them to know. I want them to know what happened in the Civil War, what happened in the 60s, Africans were enslaved. I want them to know these things. I want them to know the good, bad, and ugly about America, so that we don't repeat our mistakes. It's one of the adages we hear all the time: unless we know our history, we're doomed to repeat it. And so my questions are, is that as we're sitting here talking about this, is like, what changed in the last few years? Did we not dwell on this stuff when we were in school? You and I were in school. Did we not learn about civil rights? Because I don't remember this being such a stickler issue. It's like, well, I don't remember people being offended. I don't remember my parents calling up the school district and saying, I don't want Darrin to learn this and that.
You know what happened?
What happened? Why is it changed?
The global awareness of Tulsa is what started it.
Okay.
Now, what happened? I mean, over the years,
project, all these things,
is that now what happens is that these things are documented. All these things are documented. You can find all these things in our history, in documentation. The thing about it is, it wasn't in our history books. So what in politics right now, if you can stop the conversations, stop the exposure and the awareness, we can go back to this hidden fantasy of America. That's all it is. It's a hidden fantasy of what America is really about. It's not about to make one group of people feel bad. It's not about that at all. It's about the fact that you have a group of people that are now standing up and saying, we're not taking this anymore.
Yeah.
If you can bring awareness of things, you can then stop these things from happening in the future, which is what this is from Joe. Joe Elder says, when the kids see the photo, they may say, Grandpa, is that grandfather? And then that family will have a conversation, a very awkward conversation. The thing about it is that you should have these awkward conversations.
Yeah.
And you should have these. If that was your grandfather and that's the way he acted, you should be able to tell your kids, this is not how I want you to grow up.
Yes. Thank you.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? But instead, there's a control and power aspect to it. There's a power in that vote. There's a power in controlling politics. Now, I had a point earlier about this, and it escaped my mind when it came down to voting. If you can vote, well, first of all, if you eliminate this out of your history books, you eliminate the civil rights movement, you eliminate all these negative things, you will have a generation of kids growing up thinking America is what it currently is. But what happens is now, as you see, all these old patterns are still coming back out. It was just in Utah, just this week, a football team, a black player gets tackled. He's like the only black player on the team. He gets tackled by the other team. The guy stands over him, telling him, you stay down, and call him the N-word. The guy jumps up and says, don't call me, and he says the N-word. The referees hears the black guy telling the white dude, don't call me the N-word. The black guy gets disciplined because he used a racial slur openly. The officials didn't hear the other guy. Now, what would make a teenager in high school right now say that? If he did say it, allegedly, it's the lack of understanding and the lack of history. The thing about it is that kid knew that was a derogatory term. He knew that.
Yeah.
He knew that. So what would give him that empowerment to say it? Is because it's
learned behavior. It's learned behavior. And I can't imagine here in 2021 that these kinds of things are still an issue. I mean, that's just what are parents teaching their kids anymore?
Well, they're not teaching them. That's the whole point. They're not teaching them. We talked about it all last summer. You know, here in Texas, they're doing slave auctions on social media. What would make a child do that? So if you continue to bring this awareness, like I said, it goes back to the Tulsa issue. When like you said, you never heard of Tulsa. I heard of Tulsa growing up. But when the vast majority of people never heard of Tulsa, never knew what Juneteenth was all about, all these things, it's going to allow people to start investigating. These young kids who have access to the internet can investigate and look things up. Then it's like, oh, that's Mom. A good thing. Now you think about this, Darrin. Think about this. In the Tulsa situation, the guy who currently runs the city, I think the mayor or if it was some political official, has ties all the way back to the burning of Tulsa. His grandparents were involved in that mess.
Okay.
So those are the things that where you have to come to realization is that, okay, maybe I give you, that's just like me as a black person. Say there's this big criminal thing that happened with black people. What if I find out in my ancestry that my ancestors were the one who sold the slaves into slavery? I would feel bad about that, but it doesn't affect me personally.
Right, exactly.
I would hate to know that my great 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 uncle from Africa somewhere is the one who manipulated for profit or gain to sell his own people into slavery.
Yeah.
I would feel bad about that, but I'm not sitting back here feeling like, oh, I'm ashamed. It has nothing to do with me. But it's history.
It's history.
It's truth. It's fact.
So this is my beef with people who have Confederate great grandfathers or whatever, and they feel if I say something about the Confederate flag, they're like, well, you're denigrating my family because I have, my great grandfather fought for the Confederacy, and they consider them a veteran. I'm like, they're not veterans. They were traitors to this country. Have we not grown to the point of being able to admit to ourselves what's wrong was wrong? Are we not to the point in history in this 21st century of saying, you know what, people were wrong, and we had ancestors who were wrong, who were slave owners, who participated in the slave auctions, who did terrible things. I mean, that doesn't reflect on me. This was decades ago, so it doesn't reflect on you, like you said. So I never understood that point of view. So
is it that some people feel that they wish things had stayed the same?
I don't know what it is. I think it's somewhat having to do with like people just getting along and saying, well, we don't want to talk about things that are uncomfortable. A lot of people are like that. They don't want to talk about things that are uncomfortable. So things that,
reason why,
if it's your grandfather that did something abhorrent, and you just want to, a lot of people would just want to ignore that and be quiet about it. If you have that uncle who is off the rails and is offensive, and you might want to just gloss over that. You might want to just ignore that and say, well, he's my uncle, he's my family. So you just want to get along with that person. You want to get along with his children, so you don't say anything about it. You know what I mean? That's just an example I throw out there.
Yeah. No, I can get it. But I'm talking about overall, like you said, about people that are from the South who have people that were in the Confederate military.
These aren't even people who are from the South. These are like people here that live in Ohio. I called people out on our community site. This is like 2-3 years ago. And I said, I really have a problem with, because there was like there's like a half dozen houses in this town where I live that fly the Confederate flag. And I said, I feel that's offensive. That's offensive. And that's a racist thing. Imagine when my friends come here and I take them, they see that Confederate flag. What are they thinking about this town? People were really offended at that. And and they told me the things that, like, well, I've had family members that were Confederate veterans. And
so are they proud of that?
Yes.
That's the point I'm making.
They felt that they were fighting for their country as United States veteran of the armed forces. Right. And my point is they're traitors. They did not fight for this country. They fought against this country.
And that's why I asked earlier, do people feel that they wish things stayed the same as they were? If you feel that if you feel that proud because your family member fought for the Confederacy, you're that proud of it. That says a lot about your character. That says a lot about you as a person. That doesn't mean that wasn't your family member and you loved your family member. That doesn't mean they fought for the right reasons. That doesn't mean, we were just talking about Kumo and his brother, right? We were just talking about that. We know he was wrong.
Yes.
He loved his brother, right? He did something wrong.
Yes.
He paid the consequences for it. I empathize with him just wanting to be there for his brother. I get it. That doesn't mean he was right.
Mm-hmm.
No different.
I want to go back to voting rights. We mentioned voting rights, and then we kind
well,
of
I brought the
got off
history
track
up. I brought the history up because voting rights is what's going to change what's being done in history. That's
Okay.
why I brought the voting.
Okay.
That group of people that we saw that video about were the same ones who wrote the bills in Tennessee
Yes.
to remove certain things about history from their curriculum. That's why voting rights is important. You're now putting it to where you're going after voting rights. You're going after education. What's next? That's important. Those two things, voting rights and education, will impact every one of our future generations. Flat out, it does.
Yes,
and
definitely.
People want to continue to argue that, well, voter rights, this is about ID. It's not just about IDs. Think about this. We talked about it last week. If you've never woke up and had your voting rights threatened, you don't think about it. Think about Hispanics, for instance. There was a time where Hispanic people of Mexican descent couldn't vote because they couldn't read or write English.
Yep.
So they couldn't vote. Think about it. Voting rules in Spanish has not been that old. It's what, 15 years, if that. Has been in
I
Spanish.
don't know.
It hasn't been that long. So there was a time in the before the civil rights movement, back in those days where you had to count jelly beans in a jar. You had to recite the national anthem.
Yep.
You had to read the Constitution. It was only for a certain group of people. It wasn't for everybody. Didn't have to go read the Constitution, because I can promise you, everybody didn't know the Constitution.
Yep.
But that was the discrimination to a group of people. So right now, in places like Houston, where you have people who work certain times of the night, or you have people that were infected with COVID in 2020, they decided to do the drive-through voting. What was so wrong with drive-through voting? I would love to be able to drive through and vote.
Yeah.
Then I look at people like my parents who had to wait in line 4 hours because they had to go to downtown Cleveland, and they live in the suburbs, go to downtown Cleveland to vote.
That's wrong.
When in my community, I drove 2 minutes up the street, and I was able to vote, and it was empty. It was just me and my wife there.
Yep.
That's
Same here.
Total difference, and it depends on your reason. If you live in a predominantly Republican community, you're going to have more access to vote right now.
It's going to be easier. It's going to be easier. Quite point blank. So I got to say this. So you really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of how precarious voting is in this country. Those examples that you mentioned, people waiting in lines for half the day. These people, this is a Tuesday. These are people that might have to take time off of work to go and vote, to go downtown, to drive in to downtown, to wait in a line. So anything that makes voting easier, you would think that people would support. Anybody in this country should support.
Yeah, exactly.
Drive through, mail in, whatever, voting early, showing up to the precinct early, to your courthouse or wherever. So that should all be a good thing. That should all be a good thing. Declaring it, I think it should be a national holiday. So at least your federal employees and your banks and things like that, and your schools would be off, and those people would have a lot easier time to vote. And we should have like carpools of people taking seniors into vote, into precincts. We should make it so that you could vote in your nursing home. We should make it totally easier to vote, and we've made it harder to vote. It's amazing to me what goes on behind the scenes. Listening to this story, listening to that video that we saw earlier, about what they are doing. These people, this organization, this woman is evil. Of what they're doing is they started right away as soon as November, the 11th November a year ago, November 2020 election ended. They started with this, and they started pushing these things through the state.
Oh, 1 second, Darrin. 1 second, Darrin. Hold on, Darrin. Go back even farther. The action took place after the election, but think about. Remember, we talked about this last week. The pre-clearance that they took away in 2013. That's when it started. Because if you can take away that, the states can now make their own voting rules, their own bills and laws without any type of accountability. And so it started in 2013. The plan was started then. But you're right. In
I
2020, go ahead. So go. No,
you're
right.
They started enacting these things, and
exactly.
they target the states. It's like these abortion laws. They're targeting the states because overwhelmingly, at the state level, in large part due to gerrymandering, in many cases, Republicans control state legislatures, so they can go into these states and they can enact things, these archaic things, these things that make no sense about not giving water in voting lines. All these things that's happening in Texas and Tennessee and Iowa, these things come from somewhere. Somebody, like you said, sits down and writes these bills, and then they submit it to the states and they say, here it is, already written for you. All you have to do is put your name on it and have a vote.
Yep. And that's exactly what they did. And it's getting to the point where the more and more these things happen without any accountability, the worse things are going to get. Because everyone, I don't know anyone who's in disagreement with the fact that you need voter ID laws. No one agreed. No one is in disagreement that you need to show some type of ID.
Yep.
Everyone is in agreement with that.
Yep.
So what else is it that's causing the problem? The problem is all these other things. It's all about power and control. If you can manipulate people enough to believe a lie, like the election was stolen, which there was no proof of, if you can make people believe that there's voter fraud going on and there's no proof of it, we're not saying a small amount of people haven't been caught cheating, in the voting process. But it's not enough to change a vote in an election.
Yeah.
And those people get caught. They do time, whatever, So the whole point is you're having a demographic shift in our country that is threatening the people. The amount of Hispanics that have grown in population in America is threatening the people. Those are votes that a certain group of people are going to lose.
Okay.
That's why the gerrymandering is so important in places like Texas. You now have two Democrats running against each other for Congress. Two people that have been doing good work and that are, very influential in their communities. Sheila Jackson Lee and Al Green. Now they have to go against each other.
Wow.
That's not fair. So when this gerrymandering takes place, you're dividing, and it always typically happens. I mean, from what I understand, I could be wrong. Somebody out there correct me. It typically happens with the Republican parties. The Republican Party gerrymanders to when they see the demographic shift in their districts. They gerrymander to cut that out. I'm like, it's frustrating, man. So when you can lead the vote, when you can you can restrict the vote to limit the amount of people that can, continue to move this country forward. You're going to see more and more of these restrictive laws that's going to change policy, education, like I said, history. What's next? We don't know what's next, but it's something else is going to come next.
Yeah. And
we're going to move farther back into history again. And it's sad. And I'm sorry I take so long on this, but this is just so passionate.
No, this is why we're here to talk about these things. And I think it's substantive to spend time on this. I'm glad we're giving time to this. We're going to come back to this on a regular basis. I think voting rights and the sort of erosion that we see of being able to vote, plain and simple. One of the basic things about being a United States citizen is that we believe that we have a vote, that we are free to, or that we have a say in government. And so we want to come back to this for sure.
Yeah. So what do you think, man, about this shooting, man?
Which one?
Let's talk about
Michigan.
Let's talk about the Michigan. I think we have a video there.
We have a few videos about this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the Michigan one here.
Could you state your full name for us, please?
Ethan Robert Crumbly.
The suspected teen shooter appearing in court remotely, along with his parents.
The sheriff now revealing that school officials were in contact with Crumbly twice to discuss concerning behavior in class the day before the incident and that same morning when his parents also came to the school for a face-to-face meeting.
We had no information from the schools, but we have since learned that the schools did have contact with the student.
Just 3 hours after that last meeting with his parents, authorities say school security cameras show the gunman walking out of a bathroom and entering a hallway. The attack being called premeditated by the Oakland County prosecutor, who says they found video and journal entries of him talking about killing students.
It was absolutely premeditated.
The 15-year-old sophomore pleading not guilty to a slew of charges, including 1 count of terrorism causing death and 4 counts of first-degree murder. This morning, new details about what happened inside Oxford High. Police say he fired off more than 30 rounds. He still had 18 bullets left when police stopped him just minutes later. Police say the murder weapon, a Sig Sauer handgun, was purchased days earlier by the suspect's father. 4 students were killed: 17-year-old Justin Schilling, 14-year-old Hannah St. Juliana, 17-year-old Madison Baldwin, and 16-year-old Tate Meir. Senior Christina Myers heard gunshots in the hallway before she and other students frantically stacked chairs against the classroom door.
So you were preparing to die?
Oh, yeah. I thought that he was going to come into the classroom.
She quickly texted her dad, "I love you. There's shooting. I love you." The trauma from that day just now settling in.
I know that I can't move on from this because I know 4 kids won't be able to move on from this.
Crumbly is being held without bond, and prosecutors are saying that not only could he face additional charges, but his parents could also be charged, though it's still unclear as to what those charges could be. Savannah?
All right, Megan Fitzgerald, thank you very much.
So it's like, again, we're going through this cycle again of gun conversations again. But I got a question for you, Darrin.
Yes.
I got a question for you. So the parents bought this guy this 15-year-old a gun. Okay, I'm not
sure they bought it for him, but they bought it, yes.
Okay, I took the understanding they bought it for him.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Now, hear me out. Now, I'm not objective to them buying him the gun. I'm not objective to that. My objection is, where was the training and what were the rules that you have placed with your son and his gun? For him to take that gun to school, to me, it showed that there was not a real conversation. And also
not a conversation, no.
And also by the action of the parents. Man, I'm just sad by it.
So, I mean, I got a lot of things to say, or that I could say about it. For one thing, I don't think there was any training or any boundaries or any sort of. I mean, first of all, they didn't have it locked up. First of all, it wasn't secured. So there's a liability right there. So second of all, he had shown signs of being in distress. He had actually publicized in social media that he needed help. So why would you give your kid a gun if your kid has expressed mental distress? Okay, totally that's another thing. And then the parents seem to be were unwilling to discipline him because there were some things said in school apparently, and that he had gotten in trouble, and his mom was joking about it with him in like some of the texts that were made public. And I think the fact that they were on the run, they were hiding in a building that someone let him in a furniture store, was it, or something like that? And
they were apprehended.
They were embarrassed, and they know that they're in the wrong for this. And I am glad that they're being prosecuted for this, that it's not just the teenage 15-year-old student that is being prosecuted for this. I'm wondering if he's being prosecuted as an adult, first of all.
Yes, he is.
He is. Okay.
Yes, he is.
So I'm glad. I agree with it. I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think and the prosecutor has said, we're doing this to send a message, Yeah. I don't know how people out there feel about that, about the prosecutor sending a message by charging these particular parents in this crime, because I think we're going to see it again.
Yeah. Well, if you remember back, we had a conversation on gun control. We talked about gun reform. As you know, I'm a gun advocate, firm believer in the Second Amendment, but I do believe there should be some reform. And one of my bullet points for reform was to start now going after the parents when these children are in these type of shootings. I think it's the right move because any other time your child messes up, the parents are accountable. If your child has a car accident,
you're liable.
Accountable. If your child hurts somebody in your house, your home insurance is impacted. You're liable. So why not with the gun? So I think it's the right move. I totally support it, and I think that it will move forward to where you see this happen more and more. Is it fair to the parents? You got to break it down. Then, where was the disconnect at? If you had a parent who says, "I never thought my child would have done this," why not? Where's the communication at with your child? I mean, my kids have been through stressful situations. They've been through emotional and mental breakdowns before. But there's a level of respect for me as a parent and a respect for themselves to step out and do something crazy. That was literally crazy right there.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care. I'm just going to say the kid was crazy. Now, the flip side of that, if it showed evidence that he was being bullied and beat up on a regular basis and no one believed his story, no one believed, because you hear that also, you've heard people who got bullied and no one believes they're getting bullied and they lose it.
Yeah.
In that situation, the kid felt like I had no way to handle this on my own, but to go get a gun and kill somebody. I get that. I can really get that. I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm saying I get it.
Right.
But this kid had wrote a blueprint of killing people.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Jeff says for sure to your point, they did buy it for him. The mother posted on a social media going to arrange so my son can try out his new Christmas present. So that's just, I don't know. You're buying your kid a gun for Christmas. I don't know about that. I really
like
don't.
I said, I'm not against buying the gun, but if you know your kid is going through mental health issues, don't buy him a gun.
No.
You know this about your kid. You know your kid going through some stuff. We all know our children. If you say you don't know your children, you're a bad parent, in my opinion.
Yeah, hopefully.
You're a bad parent if you say I do not know my children.
And to think that, well, it couldn't happen to you, it couldn't happen to your kids, or you couldn't happen in your town. Think again. These things happen all over the place. You think happen in all kinds of communities. Aurora, Colorado, that little town in Connecticut. I've been there. I was there. I stopped there in Connecticut, in Sandy Hook. That's a small town. So you think to yourself, well, it can't happen here. This is a nice place. It can happen here. It could happen to your kids. And so
happen anywhere.
My heart stopped when I'm thinking to myself, well, that could be my daughter sending me a text that says there's a shooting right now in my school going on right now. So take these things seriously, folks.
Why do you think the couple ran?
Because they know they're wrong, because they know they're in the wrong. They feel bad about it, and they feel guilty about it, and they know that.
Right. I get, but why run? I mean, you don't want to fight and defend yourself. I mean, you're making your case. Where do you think you were going to go?
There's no defense.
You're making your situation,
there's no defense.
You're making yourself worse, but you're making it worse. And think about it is
they're ashamed. They're ashamed.
Okay, I got that. And another thing, which was I was glad to hear that when they were arrested, they were unarmed. I'm so glad to hear that because it could have turned out really bad.
I mean, the videos that I saw, that the woman is hiding her face and everything. We seen your picture before. We know what you look like. So, as she was being arrested and she's like, has her head down and everything. So, they're ashamed.
Yeah. So this is. The sad part is you have a child that's going to be locked up. Now you have parents that are going to be locked up. And we have to come to grips with the violence in our country.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Our violence in our country is not an economical thing. It's not a racial thing.
Nope.
It's not a political thing. People from all walks of life are affected by violence.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm not even going to put it all on gun violence, just violence in particular, just violence. We need to do better as a nation. We need to do better as citizens. It's a rage in us right now that we are attacking each other for the most minimal things. A traffic incident can cause a person to lose their life.
Yep.
Why are we there? You know, and we have to do better. And speaking more on that with the gun violence thing, this was another story that came up, still keeping it tied to what we were talking about, you know, the minors. But there's a young kid who was selling the ghost guns. Here's a video of that.
Now, investigators in Douglas County are looking for a third suspect in the shooting death of 14-year-old Kyra Scott. And so far, they've arrested her 13-year-old brother and a 19-year-old. They're both charged with murder.
Today, the sheriff said it appears the 13-year-old was selling ghost guns, and the 19-year-old, another suspect, tried to rob him. Kyra got caught in the middle of it. Our Tracy A. McPeer is live at the sheriff's office to explain more of what happened here. Tracy.
Well, ghost guns are untraceable guns made from parts bought online. And the sheriff says that Kyra's 13-year-old brother was buying those parts and making those weapons. He also says that Kyra was killed by one of those weapons.
This baby was taken in a bad way. And now it's more tragedy on top of this.
Days after 14-year-old Kyra Scott was shot to death by her own brother, her aunt Angela Berry says the shock of this tragedy is just starting to wear off. And at a press conference on Wednesday, Douglas County Sheriff Tim Pounds finally shared what happened on Saturday, the day Kyra died. Pounds says the whole tragedy stemmed from ghost guns, weapons her brother was making from materials he bought online and selling on the streets.
Now, this kid is 13 years old, but he's making weapons. We're talking about semi-machine guns. And he's selling those weapons on the streets of Douglas County, Carroll County, Atlanta Airways.
Pound says at around 2 p.m. on Saturday, a 19-year-old customer and another person came to this house on Vicky Lane to buy one of these weapons. Pound says they instead tried to steal it, at which point the 13-year-old brother fired shots at them with another gun he had made.
But instead, he shot his sister.
The 19-year-old now charged with robbery by sudden snatching and murder while in the commission of a felony, and Kyra's own 13-year-old brother facing one charge of murder for now. Now, the sheriff says they are actively looking for that third suspect, but they didn't give us a name or reveal what charges that suspect could be facing.
Right, Tracy, a tragic story there. Thank you so much.
Now,
So
sad.
If you look at that, yeah, it's sad because, again, it goes back to parenting. How can a kid get that? You know, if you're making guns, I'm not sure how many he's made, and you're getting these parts delivered to your home to build these guns. How does someone not know this is happening?
Lack of
I
regulation.
check my mail. Unless he's getting them delivered somewhere else and he's picking the parts up, somebody has to be responsible in this situation. And in this same
there ought to
case,
have been a dozen red flags.
yeah, should be. I mean, so the difference in this case
laws,
was
it should have been triggered. Go ahead.
now in this case, the little different is that the parents didn't buy the kid the gun. Now the question is, who in the household knew this was happening?
Again,
Like,
parenting. Again, strong parenting.
Go ahead.
I mean, are we paying attention to what our kid gets in the mail? Are we? I mean, 13 years old, I think I'm probably going to open a package that has my child's name on it. If it's a package of selling, or it's a package of parts, like,
Yeah.
what is this? You know,
Like, do you not go in your kid's room? I mean, you know, how do you assemble a gun in your room and no one knows you're assembling a gun in your room?
that I don't know. It's wait. I think this should be all illegal. I don't believe we should be able to print out parts to a gun. I don't believe that. I think all that should be illegal. There's no way to trace it. There's no way to effectively regulate that. And it ought to be regulated. Here we had a 13-year-old who's putting guns together and selling them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And one of the things why I wanted to really talk about these two topics with the kid in Michigan and the Georgia team is that those are two of the key points of me where I want gun reform. Like I said, I'm an advocate of guns. I love guns. I have my own. But when you have parents that are not held accountable, and then when you have the legal access of assembling, it's illegal right now to assemble these guns, but it should be illegal to sell these ghost guns and to assemble these type of guns without any type of. Now, if you're going to do it with serial numbers, and you're going to track these guns with the proper identification, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it if they're identified. But right now, these aren't identified guns. You can't trace them. So at least you can find out what store sold this minor the gun.
Yep.
What type of identification did they require from that minor? Because he's definitely underage. Definitely underage. So, man, you want to go into your story about Joel Osteen, man? Let's change the topic a little bit.
To who? Oh, Joel Osteen.
Yeah, you have a video for that by any chance?
Yeah, we do. Hold on here.
Yeah, because man,
here we go.
Now to developments in a story that KPRC2 has been tracking for years now. Hundreds of thousands of dollars reported missing from Lakewood Church may have been found in a bathroom wall of the church.
I mean, it may sound hard to believe, and the claim made on a radio show is raising eyebrows all over Houston. We're talking about a $600,000 reported theft here. KPRC2's Rochelle Turner talked to one of the DJs who heard the claim this morning. Rochelle, this is just simply, wow, pretty unbelievable.
Christine, Andy, wow, crazy. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh, really? Yes, that is what many people are going to be thinking once they watch this story. A plumber just doing his job at Lakewood Church discovered an undisclosed amount of money.
It was the craziest phone call we've ever had.
Meet George Lindsay. He's the morning show co-host for the Morning Bullpen at 100.3 The Bull.
It's the greatest job ever.
This morning, the co-host asked people about valuable things they found and received a call from a plumber who recently did some work at Lakewood Church.
There was a loose toilet in the wall, and we removed the tile. Well, they removed the tile. Went to go remove the toilet, and I moved some insulation away, and about 500 envelopes fell out of the wall. And I was like, oh, wow.
Back in 2014, the mega church made headlines after someone stole $600,000.
Obviously, this case remains under investigation.
7 years later, a man fixing a toilet at the church discovered money in the walls.
I went ahead and contacted the maintenance supervisor that was there. And I went ahead and turned it all in.
In a statement, Lakewood Church said recently while repair work was being done at Lakewood Church, an undisclosed amount of cash and checks were found. Lakewood immediately notified the Houston Police Department and is assisting them with their investigation. HPD has not confirmed if the money stolen years ago and the money found by the plumber are related. But Lindsay says investigators would have never known about the money if it wasn't for the plumber who discovered it. There's still a lot of questions.
If it's that money, why did they never go back and get that money? It's like I said, it's like a movie. I really think I could make a 10-part series on Netflix out of it.
And it's still unclear at this hour just how much money that plumber found at the church. It's something that I'm working to get answers for you at 6 o'clock. But a few years ago, when we first reported this story, Crime Stoppers was offering a $25,000 reward. Coming up at 6, you'll hear what the caller had to say when he was asked about that reward. For now, reporting live in Southwest Houston, I'm Rochelle Turner, KPRC 2 News.
Wow, all right.
So I think it was an inside job. I think somebody took the collection plate and they stashed it there. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you go back and get it if it was somebody from the outside that stole this money? Why wouldn't you get it?
You had envelopes. That means that it was a collection of money.
It was a collection of money because there were checks.
Over a period of time. Yeah, there was over a period of time. So you think about this also, either the person was reprimanded for something totally different or kicked out of church for something else and never disclosed that they had that money. Because why, like I said, why wouldn't they come back for it? Or think about this. What if that money was there and they came back every so often to get more? They'll just take a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Every
I
month you go
guess
grab a couple
maybe.
envelopes and take it home. That's
That could
crazy,
be. That
man.
could be. That is pretty crazy.
That was their stash.
I hope
7 years.
I hope the plumber gets some of that reward though.
Yeah, that'd be awesome,
They
man. He
deserve that.
deserves it. He deserves it.
So
Have
that's
you
pretty
ever
crazy.
found something? Have you ever found something
Not
that was
like that.
valuable? I mean, not that much
Uh,
money, but have you ever found anything that you say, "Wow, that's valuable"?
Not really, to be honest. Not really. I mean, I
Yeah,
haven't really even found people's wallets or anything like that.
yeah, me
I
either.
haven't been in that
I
position.
found wallets.
You find a
I've
wallet?
turned them in.
Okay.
I've turned them in. I found wallet with cash in it. I've always turned it in.
Yeah.
But I've never found something just out in the blue,
I'm usually the
you're
guy that
walking through the
loses
street.
things like that, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, what would, like, if you found a bundle of cash in the woods or something, would you keep it?
uh
Just
probably
laying
not,
there.
but I mean in the woods, I don't know what to do with that. I guess call the police. I don't know.
Or on the street. You found like a stack of $100 bills, a roll of $100 bills rolled off from the grass on the side of the street.
I don't know. I'd probably call the police because it sounds like a drug deal to me. I don't know. Because what am I gonna do with this stack of hundreds? I guess put it in the bank, but a lot of places won't even accept $100 bills. So I guess I don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it? What
Yeah.
would you do? So yeah, $600,000, man. So we've been on, man, for like 2 hours, dude. This has been an incredible show. We want to thank Linda Beard again for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you, Linda.
So what's your bottom line for today, Darrin?
Well, I like your guess and what she was talking about and being your authentic self. And so I would say to people out there to be don't be afraid, be empowered to be your authentic self as much as you can be, and to be honest with yourself. For a long time in my life, I think I had trouble being honest with myself because I had a lot of expectations that I felt that, from learned behaviors, things that I thought my parents expected me to do. And
Right.
as she said, usually it's not that bad when you're honest with yourself and you come out to people and you say, you know what, this is just not me, or this is not what I want to do, or this is, or I'm not happy in this situation.
Right.
Be it a job. I recently went through that struggle because I was in a job that after a while, in the last couple of years, just recently, I was not, I felt like I could not be my authentic self. When I stood up there in the pulpit and preached, I couldn't say what I really wanted to say. I couldn't be my authentic person because I felt that people expected me to act a certain way and do certain things and be somebody who I wasn't. Right.
So what
So
did you
that
what
was
did you feel about that?
part of it. Well, because I mean, part of it is that here I am, I'm 50. So I felt like there's an expectation that I should be doing this, that my family depends on it. That this is what I should be doing, to take responsibility for myself and my family. I can't just do whatever I want to do. I can't just quit and do something that I want to do that's not going to pay the bills, right? So that was part of it.
No, one of the questions I had with that, and I know this is going beyond our time, but when you felt that you couldn't be your whole self,
Mm-hmm.
and you're standing in front of people, because as a pastor, you're accountable for the people that you're ministering to. And if you can't be your authentic self, you are doing them an injustice to a certain extent. And did you ever think about not being able to be your authentic self? You can cause more harm to them because you're not keeping it 100 with them all the time, not keeping it real all the time with them.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought about things both ways, that you're also there to do a service for them and to help them and to be there for them and to be their minister and pastor and respond to them.
Yeah.
So you feel that weight as well, that there is legitimately an expectation that you're going to you're going to be their pastor to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in pastoring to them, you also have to you have to be able to speak, because there's going to be people out there that need to hear what's on your heart to say. The Holy Spirit puts that on, not to get too religious, but the Holy Spirit puts things on your heart, I believe, to say that need to be said, because probably somebody out there needs to hear it.
Yes.
Probably somebody out there needs to hear it. It could just be one or two people, but somebody is going to benefit from that, or there's going to be a seed that's planted because of what you say. So there's a reason why you feel the way you do. So there's that angle as well.
I want to tell you, Darrin, that I applaud you for that. I respect you for that. And I think that in time, you will be rewarded for your stance. I think that many of us, because of peer pressure, because of what we think others are going to say, that we do not do the right thing.
Right.
And sometimes you have to remove yourself from an environment for God to fully use you as He intended you to be used. And that's what I see here. That's just my interpretation of you telling me what happened. And I just say I applaud you for it. And I think you're a great guy for doing what you did.
Well, you mean it could be stressful trying to pretend to be someone that you're not. It's stressful.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate that. And anything else on the bottom line?
Well, what about you? What's yours?
My bottom line is two things. Again, with Linda, being authentic, being the whole you. I had to learn in my mid-adult years, like in my 30s to 40s, of truly being authentic. I think I did a lot. I mean, I go back to the church as well, of being a leader in so many areas and being an encourager, that a lot of times you're going through motions.
Wow.
And not actually being the authentic you. You're doing it. And then when I became my authentic you, people have really more appreciated it, because they knew I was real. I wasn't fake. I wasn't fake. And something that people aren't maybe accustomed to on a regular basis is people being transparent. I am a very transparent person. Who you see here every Saturday I'm on the show, that's who you see out in the world with me. I'm the same guy.
You are very authentic. You are.
And I try to keep it that way, because like I said earlier in the show with Linda, that for a period of time, I'm doing things to make other people happy.
Yes.
And making other people happy is not always the right thing to do. So that's my bottom line. Be the authentic you, be the whole you. And secondly, the other bottom line, part of my bottom line is parents. Communicate with your children. Be more responsible with your children.
Yes.
And lastly, do not run from accountability with your children. Do not run from accountability. We want to pass the buck. We want to give excuses in how we raise our children.
Yes.
And it's your job. Screw what everybody else think about what you're doing as a parent. Raise your kids. Communicate with your kids. I'm tired of hearing parents say, I didn't know what my kid was thinking, or I didn't know. It's your job to know.
Okay.
I raised 2 kids, so you can't tell me I don't know. I raised 2.
Right.
And my kids are doing great.
Yes.
They went through their problems, but I knew what was on my kid's mind. And if I didn't know, what it was on, and then there were things I didn't know. But there was a relationship there that my kids knew their boundaries.
Right.
Even the things I didn't know, they knew my boundaries. And the last thing that I want to say about that is that I remember a conversation with my son, and he said something that I never expected him to say, but he said it was, we as parents question our parenting skills. We question that sometimes, a lot of times. And even if me and my son didn't agree all the time, he told me, he said, Dad, there was times I got into situations and I would sit back and I would think, wow, what would Dad do in this situation?
Wow.
How would he handle this? How would he handle this? And that brought me to tears
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're thinking your kids aren't really watching you, or they're not really paying you attention, but actually
they
they're
do.
watching everything you do. They're watching all
Yep.
your steps.
Yep.
So the bottom line is communicate with your kids. And that's it for me, man. I had a great
Awesome.
show today. We really had a great show, man.
I thought we had a great show.
I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of today's show. I mean, from every topic we talked about. And man,
So
it's been great.
I want to
working
thank
with you,
everyone
man.
out there for being a part of this, and to support the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for your support. We'll see you again next week. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about. We talked about having Leanne on, who's a regular listener to our show. She's going to be on our show, I believe. But I'm sure that things will happen during the week, and there'll be more than enough to talk about for next time. So.
Take care. We catch you next week. Peace.
See you guys. Peace.